You're listening to Mystic Magic, exploring our spirit to understand our lives. I'm Celeste A. Frazier, your hostess, and it's my joy to welcome you to Breakouts and Breakthroughs. And my guest today is Science of Mind Minister, Reverend Karen Fry. She's a good friend and a powerful presence. Stay tuned. This is Mystic Magic, exploring our spirit to understand our lives. Hey, Mystic Magic podcast fans. We've got another great episode for you today. This episode is with Reverend Karen Fry. Reverend Karen Fry has a genuine love for all of life, and she meets people exactly where they are. She leads with her heart, and she's willing to be vulnerable and real. Perfect candidate for Mystic Magic. So her enthusiasm is infectious, and she's authentic, and she invites you into your own magnificence. So she will not let you play small. She's known for her enthusiasm, for her inspirational speaking, and her prosperity consciousness. She's committed to teaching the science of mind and living an abundant life. And she wants you to go to your highest potential and move from limitation to limitless. And sometimes she incorporates extreme spirituality for transformation, like walking on fire and breaking boards with your hands. So she's a certified firewalking instructor, and she's always on fire with her faith in the power of prayer. When she's not at CSL Dallas, you will find her spending time in nature, taking pictures of wildlife, planning her next travel adventures. And so she's been diagnosed with breast cancer, and she used spiritual principles and practices to become cancer-free in less than a month. Okay, Reverend Karen discovered Be Love as her primary spiritual practice. And out of this awakening, she started Be Love, Pass It On. And I've got a t-shirt or two and a bracelet of this. It's a wonderful way to awaken all of us to the boundless love that's within us, and we can be that in the world. She received her ordination in 2016 and became a licensed minister for Centers for Spiritual Living in 2013. And she served in leadership at all levels of the organization, at Oakland Center in Oakland. She served for 14 years, our international organization. She serves as a co-chair on the CSL Ministers Council, and she's been chair of the nominating council for a long time. She's been a core council member for the predecessor organization, United Centers for Spiritual Living, and she served as vice chair on the Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation Board of Trustees. She's a busy woman. She's doing some essential work because she's part of the Leadership Council of the Faith Forward Dallas organization, serving as convener for civic engagement focused on racial equality, housing solutions, migrant status, and gun sense. Before she was a minister, she was in executive leadership and sales and marketing, and she was in the medical device industry, and she thrived there. She loves a startup environment, and she takes companies to their next major growth stage. So what a great skill set for a minister. She's got a master's in consciousness studies from Holmes Institute from the Santa Rosa, California campus. She's got a bachelor's of business administration in marketing and sales from the University of Memphis in Memphis, where she graduated magna cum laude. Welcome, Reverend Karen.
Wow, that was a mouthful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Reverend Celeste. Great
we
to
don't
see
have
you.
we don't have lightweights on Mystic Magic. We
No,
we
you
only
don't.
have the big guns. So
Well, I feel blessed to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you.
Oh yeah, always. And you're a supportive presence and always bringing love and support. So speaking of support, we were talking about your prosperity consciousness in the bio. And I saw you in action when you were describing an ask that you were doing on a video. Now, how did you come into discovering that you're a money magnet?
That's a great question. I think some of us are born with natural tendencies. I don't know if I was. This was even pre science of mind. I guess because I grew up with an incredible, unconditionally loving father who taught me that nothing is mine. So first off, nothing is mine, and so I just get to have the experience of this energy that is the current of life itself. So money is just another expression of this current called currency, right? And that's how I hold it. So if nothing's mine, I get to experience it. So I get to welcome it in, I get to give it freely, I get to play with all of this wonderful currency of life itself. And then I know I continue to focus on this limitless expression of life. There is no limit to it. So therefore it cannot be a limit in the money. And I really put the science mind principles into work when I came into it in 2007. And you remember that thing called the recession in 2008. And I put the principles to work, and I made more money than I've ever made in my life selling a very expensive medical device where people supposedly did not have the budget anymore at colleges, universities, whatever. I mean, I made more money. In fact, they couldn't even pay me the comp plan because I use these spiritual principles. And I think what I have found since being in science mind, and especially being a minister and talking to a lot of people, is whatever reason, people hold money differently than everything else. And it's not true.
Okay.
It's the same stuff. It's
Yeah.
the same currency of life itself, right? And
Yeah.
there is no limit to it. And so I had my biggest test, quite honestly, having spent 23 years in a no ceiling income
Okay.
career, right? Was when I became a minister, a salaried minister. And I had to watch when I moved to Dallas in 2014 to not let that creep into my consciousness that actually I'm now limited on my sources. And I actually live a more abundant life, although my W 2 is not the same. But I have never felt more prosperous in my life. So I keep working it every single day. I watch when it tries to start to contract or collapse or
Hmm.
shrink. And I go, oh no, Karen, we're not going there.
Yeah.
I have more money than I can ever need on any given moment. And not once since becoming a minister and a salaried, right,
Hmm.
position have I not had enough for the month and to do what I want to do, travel, buy photography equipment, whatever the case is. So I think, like anything, sort of root out. I have an e-course called Money is God in Action. And I turn to some of the great teachers, and basically you got to uproot all the things we were told lies of, in our past, and how we grew up, how we hold something. And then once we uproot that and get it out, then it's just where do we place our focus and continue to move from limitation to limitless, right?
Weed and seed.
Weed and seed. I love that. Yeah. So it happens to be one of the areas that's not my growing edge. We each have a growing edge. And trust me,
Hmm.
I have my growing edges.
Hmm.
Beauty is abundance and prosperity is not that for me. And
Okay.
so I help. I love helping people grow in that growing edge, if it's each of yours, right?
Okay. I'm gonna look for that e-course, see what
Hmm.
that is.
Yes.
I remember, and here's another prosperity person. I think my first experience of her, I can't remember. No, that wasn't my first experience of her. I remembered her first from prosperity, but then I experienced Edwin Gaines doing a fire walk in Palm Springs
Yes.
sometime later. And what gives you the gumption to walk on fire and break boards? What do you feel invincible? Like where does the fear go? Do you have any?
Oh, yes. And by the way, I love Edwin Gaines, and she walks the talk, she practices it. There's just no BS about her, right?
Right.
Well, it was at a minister's gathering in Asheville, North Carolina, and there was a fire walk. And I actually thought, oh, I'm walking on fire. And then when I got there, I was like, I don't think I am. But I watched 50 people go before me, and I watched some of those people. And quite honestly, I thought, shoot, if they can do it, I know I can. right? So it sort of helps those that go before us, and we
Mm-hmm.
go, oh, they can do that, then I can too. And I walked on fire, and I'm telling you, it was so transformative. I knew if I can do that, I can do anything. It was
Mm-hmm.
that kind of moment. And I had some of our beloved colleagues there, all the people you know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And had one of them catch me at the end. Sunshine Day caught me, and it was transformative. And then I brought that minister to Dallas to do it for our community because I'm like, I want people to have this experience too. And what
Sure.
happened is I caught every single person, and
Mm.
it became evident that this is part of me. It was like natural. And so I went out to California and got trained by Tolly Burkan, the original guy who taught. Now we're talking, oh, you know his name. He does firewalks.
Way, way
Tony
back.
Robbins. Tony
Okay.
Robbins. He's trained Tony Robbins and all these people. I got it from the same guy, and I learned how to facilitate. I became a certified firewalking instructor, how to facilitate from a spiritual perspective. See, we see things with our eyes, and we see things we experience things with our senses, and we think that's all there is and that's real. No, we are so much beyond ourselves. And so these experiences for me, because I'm so kinesthetic, I'm such a body person that I know a lot of people are, that it helps us each to say, oh, wow, I just broke through this fear that I thought I had, that I couldn't walk on fire, and then I did. It's like walking on water. Why would you be afraid of anything if you walked on water, right? Same with fire. Same with I had a little 80-year-old woman, I mean petite woman, who said she would never attempt to break a board in a board breaking workshop, and she had her moment and she went bam, and she said,
Mm-hmm.
my life has changed. I think I'm ready to walk on fire now. So I
Okay.
think we have these limitations in our brain, or the fear, or we think this is real. And I want to help people break through those barriers.
Okay.
So no, and I'm actually not one of these adrenaline junkies. I really am not. But you can't really tell it because I used also another extreme spirituality moment when I was in New Zealand, and I bungee jumped off of the original bridge in New Zealand.
Is
That's
that
all
when
I
you
need to
broke your
do is
ankle?
no, that was on vacation, but I was safe. But I used that as a spiritual experience, that the universal umbilical cord sustains me, supports me, right? That big
Mhm.
bungee cord, I imagine, was the universe's umbilical cord that has me no matter what. And
Okay.
I jumped off that bridge. I'm not going to do that again, but it was very transformative. So,
How so?
first of all, I saw things when I dove, like little lights, like the energy of life, and it held me, and it was fun.
Mm.
I got out. It wasn't real until I got on the edge, and I'm looking, and they're like, okay, I'm counting you down. And but when I went, and I just had that vision that all was well,
Right.
and I just held that vision. Then I'm like, see, the universe has got me at all times.
Right.
And
Was
it
it
was
freeing?
very freeing.
Okay.
Very. So I think we need to, each of us have our moments. What does fear stop us from, and how can we not let it stop? Right. And so for me, I use some of these experiences. So in the mundane, everyday life, when fear comes up, because it does, and I go, wait a second, you jumped off a bridge, you walked on fire,
Mm-hmm.
you et cetera, then that
Right.
squashes that fear pretty quickly. And I go, okay, that which is greater than me can walk through this. That which is greater
Yes.
than me can take this leap of faith. That
Yes.
which is greater than me can break through this moment. And so I know that I will be doing this a lot more all around the country.
I think I'm gonna have to change the name of this episode to Break Out and Breakthrough.
There you go.
Now, I was surprised to read about your breast cancer. I know it was short lived, but I somehow missed that. I know this is a very private matter, but since it's in your bio, I
Yeah.
imagine that it's a blessing of survival and a blessing of self love. What happened in that challenge that was transformative?
Wow, that was a moment. I had just come to Dallas and I was 7 months in and had stopped drinking from the fire hose, and I felt like I was just hitting my stride. I actually got diagnosed on my birthday, and I found a lump. I felt a lump in my breast in the shower, and they ended up being 10 tumors in my left breast. And what very few people know is I'd been in a long term relationship with someone who 6 months in got diagnosed as well and went through breast cancer. And it was the most horrific, different experience one could imagine. Not going into it, but it was horrific for this person. It impacted our relationship, but I walked through it with her, right?
Hmm.
So I had some what we would call bad mental equivalents about this, right?
Right.
I'd lived through this with someone I loved deeply. And one of it was, say, a needle biopsy. It was, for this person, the most painful, excruciating pain she'd ever been through. So I had to use every bit of our spiritual principles, for example, when they said needle biopsy, and do spiritual mind treatment and all of this and mantras. And I actually didn't even feel the numbing prick of the numbing shot, much less the needle biopsy. I didn't feel a thing. And I used our spiritual principles and a naturopathic doctor and Western medicine. I used it all to the extent that I intuitively knew that I wanted to use. I told the community, and I also said, these are the things that I don't want you to do. Don't hold me any different. Don't look at me any different. Only hold me in your highest light, in your highest regard. Don't ask me if I'm okay unless you hear otherwise. I'm great. I had an aunt very early on say, I'm so sorry you're going to have a horrific year. I said, please don't ever say that to me. That is not my reality and that is not my truth. I did a huge universal no, like the big knee, like knee, no. I got
Hmm.
mad at it to say, no, this is not my life. But the blessing for me, Celeste, was I knew why it came up. I brought it on. Not most people don't bring it on. So let me be clear with that. But my consciousness brought it on. This is also very private. There was a time in that relationship that I was in prior that I thought, well, if I just got breast cancer, then it would help the relationship.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. You know how some people, when they're married, say, if we just have kids, it's going to make it okay? I did something crazy like that too.
Mm.
So then I had to really get real with myself
You know
and
what a
go,
manifester you are. Why would
I
you do
am.
that?
I know. But what was I thinking?
Right.
Um, and so don't we, at times, I bet some of us do that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
then I had to get real with myself. The breast is a nurturing part of the body.
Hmm.
I had not nurtured myself. I had not fully accepted myself. I
Hmm.
had not fully accepted my sexuality yet at this point. I mean, I was 49 or 48, 49, I think, at the time. I had not fully accepted my sexuality, my sexual orientation. I had not fully accepted, certain things, my big energy, whatever, however this individualized expression shows up, and fully loved her, accepted her, embraced her,
Good.
nurtured her. And so, of course, this came up. And so I had to get real with myself. I had to forgive myself for that. I had to
Hmm.
do a lot of forgiveness work, and I
Hmm.
had to move into loving myself at a deeper and higher level. And that was the blessing that I got out of this. I call it an unexpected blessing, that it truly is a blessing. And I never said I was fighting cancer. I embraced it. I welcomed it once it was there. What do you have to teach me?
Hmm.
I got really clean on my eating and all that stuff, right? I did all the right things for the physical body. And I also watch my language, and I never say survive. I'm a thriver.
Okay.
And I rise above the statistics and all that stuff that the Western medicine gives us. It's in our face all the time. That's why it's pretty rampant. And so we see it a lot. And I used everything that I had. So it was a blessing that I know how strong our spiritual principles and what we believe and teach are, because
Right.
it saved my life.
Yeah.
Saved my life
I
in
love
very
that you told people not to pour mouth you. I was like, oh, poor so and so. No, don't do that.
no.
Stop it.
So I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but there
Right.
are moments that can occur in our life that
Hmm.
are hard to move through, but yet they become that, catalyst for something different. And it was a catalyst of self love and full acceptance. And that opened up doors when I fully loved me, then I could fully love someone else. And I found my soulmate after that. So it was a good thing.
Wow. Okay. Thank God for spiritual tools to help us get through these moments so that we can get
Yes.
to our greater experiences, right?
Yeah.
Wow. And so yeah, and so you and your beloved got married and are living happily ever after, and it's a beautiful thing.
It is.
Now that's funny. I never, now that I thought about your sexuality, but I never remember anything about you feeling insecure or not living in your authentic self. So that must have been very, very private.
It was, we don't all show and tell everything,
Right,
and
right,
nobody ever is going to know what's going on inside of us but us
right,
each, right?
right, right.
And remember that everybody else
Yeah,
puts their pants on the same way too. Don't put anybody on a pedestal, because we're all doing our own stuff inside, right?
right. Yeah,
And
they always say
yeah,
don't put a minister on a pedestal because at some point they're gonna have to use the bathroom, right?
yeah, or fall off.
So I absolutely love the Be Love Pass It On campaign, and I still wear my Be Love T-shirt often. What inspired you to start that campaign? I know that was a ministry in and of itself, and what's going on with it now?
Great question. Well, it was something that came to me in meditation. It was like the only thing I'm really came here to be is this boundless love,
Mm,
this universal love. We can do a lot of things, but that's the only thing I came here to be. And I was like, wow, then how do I be that in every moment of my life as best I can? And so I thought, well, I'm going to be love.
mm-hmm.
And I made little wristbands, and it became my own personal spiritual practice. And then it caught on, especially with our teens throughout the country and all that. And I made some T-shirts. In fact, people wore these wristbands, and it's almost like that reminder, in a moment. Well, am I being love in this moment, both to myself and because that was the second phase for me with the breast cancer, but the first phase was, am I being love to you? Am I being this boundless love in the world? And so I started this movement, and it was growing pretty well until I got to Dallas, and it became it sort of takes a lot of my time and my energy and everything I got. So
Sure.
quite honestly, it hasn't really done much since I arrived here in 2014. I love it. People still talk about it,
Hmm.
and there's still something to be done about that. I think Peter and I are going to write a book about it and have
Okay.
practices and things like that. I don't even have a live website anymore right now, quite honestly. Everything takes focus and energy. And what I'll say is, every time I can, I'll talk about it and, like, well, how can I be love in this moment
Yeah.
and be that energy? Because as we're that greatest irresistible sweep that there is, the greatest power there is, everything around us changes because
Yeah.
nothing can stand against it.
Right.
Nothing.
And so many people are trying to be loved, but
Right.
they don't understand that this is, the law of circulation is that you got to put out some love in order to get it back too, right?
Yeah, that well, and the universe mirrors back exactly what we put out. So
Right.
yes, we
Yeah.
be that power and be that presence and be that boundless love, then it must mirror it back to us, and we have boundless love everywhere we look showing up around
Well, that's
us
what
as
I
well.
do when I'm not feeling loved. I start going out being love. So,
It works, doesn't it?
yes, yes, absolutely. Now, the Science of Mind archives is rich. Now, and the library is rich. And although it's in Colorado, I know there's still ways for people to access information because it has a lot of information about the history and a lot of principle and a lot of real hardcore metaphysics going on, right? And we'll share the link in the show notes. But why were you committed enough to be on that board?
Well, I think that, well, let's look at just history in and of itself. What happens when people don't understand certain history and humanity? So, some history we need to remember so it doesn't repeat. Other
Right.
history we need to remember because we want it to expand and we want it to grow. And I think what Ernest Holmes did, first of all, he did not bring anything new
Right.
except for one thing, but he didn't bring anything new to the planet, but he disseminated and brought together all this wonderful stuff from the revelations of Eastern and Western religions and the opinions of philosophy and the replication of science and all of that into this thing called science of mind. And we hear some quote watered down versions of it in the secret and things like that, but this is so beyond law of attraction that I feel that I don't want it to be lost, sort of like we don't want the temples of Egypt, which I've been to twice, and going again in a year. We don't want those to be lost either.
Right.
Like, that's where it all started, right there, this mysticism. That's where all this that we're talking about started, is in Egypt. So I didn't want it to be lost. So that's why I devoted some time to the Science of Mind archives.
Okay. Now, I know that your involvement with Faith Forward Dallas probably was part of your effort to making a statement after Botham Jean's murder. Is it also the organization that took you to the border with Reverend William Barber?
Yes.
I know that's all about social justice and, taking care of each other.
So we have these space. I would love for this to be replicated in our major cities. We have pretty much a majority of the faith leaders in a metropolitan area of Dallas, Texas, come together and we take a stand for each other. The way it started was when our Imam, Omar Suleiman, this Muslim band started, and an AME pastor stood with him,
Okay.
Reverend Michael Waters. And then that started where, well, we're going to stand together, and we're going to stand together on things. We come from all these backgrounds, different faiths, different traditions, but where can we stand together and support one another? And so everyone went down to the airport with the Muslim band. That's where it started. But we stood together for Botham Jean. We did go down to the border, many of us. So you can see that there, as you read in my bio, we focus on four main areas. And so immigration status, racial equity, and there's a lot of work needing in Dallas on that, and gun sense, and also I call them unsheltered housing solutions. I don't like the word homeless because
Right.
that just affirms no home, you
Right.
know, or less of a home. And so we meet on a regular basis. We have ways in which we can quickly communicate if something goes down in Dallas or outside of Dallas. We write a lot of letters, we sign a lot of petitions. We recently used some weight to get those Confederate statues down in Dallas. Thank goodness. We use some weight to say you really have to do something with the police department. And there is a way in which faith leaders can really take that moral stand and stand with one another. And all a mayor or somebody needs, or a city council person needs, is 50 some odd faith leaders to show up and start saying stuff.
Yeah.
And I really love that we do this
Yeah.
because, and we help each other out.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's
and
intimidating to politicians because they know the influence that faith leaders have on groups of people that are part of their constituency. So, they have to be accountable, and you shed light on that, and I
And
think
if you're
about,
not willing to stand up and speak up, you're actually not part of Faith Forward Dallas, just so you know. And I get some of our community members give, I get those emails, I get those phone calls. Why did you stand next to, this person and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you don't speak for our center when I do that. And I'm like, yes, I do. Um, so,
Well, you can
um,
choose to do that as one of the spiritual leaders. And I always go back to Eldridge Cleaver. If you're not part of the problem, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem.
yep,
So you can't just say one thing on Sunday and then sit on your butt the rest of the week. You're
right.
either gonna be love or you're not.
That's right. And sometimes you got to speak up and stand up and show up.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and I'd like to do it more. I know I don't do enough, but I do, at least I do something.
yeah.
And yeah,
Well, yeah, and we certainly have been part of different faith groups and interfaith groups and women ministers and women in ministry groups here in the Chicago area. And just being a presence keeps people from going back to sleep and forgetting that there are issues that have to be addressed. And they're not
yes,
going away unless we continue to shine the light on them.
yeah.
So, where's the magic in your life?
Well, the magic is when I'm holding a camera and I'm looking at some sort of wildlife. I am, time stops for me. I've really gotten into that in the past few years. I used to take pictures of people, and now it's really, I'm around a lot of people. So I really love the animals of this planet. And I've gotten to see some incredible animals. And so that's magic.
What happens inside?
I actually look through the lens of love, and I think it's the closest thing to oneness for me. As I'm looking at whatever I'm looking through my lens, it's like I'm looking through the lens as the divine, as God, as spirit, whatever we choose to call it. And I can imagine that this is what it sees when it's looking at a cosmos or a planet or a grain of sand. It's looking at itself. And so I'm looking at itself, and it happens to be a bear or an owl on a nest I saw 2 mornings ago at sunrise. And I tend to do sunrise and sunsets, and those are beautiful because that's the best light.
Mhm.
And or a duck flying by or whatever it is, right? So
Right.
that's magic for me. The other magic, which is recent, which I've not personally ever had an experience of, is I now have a almost 11-month-old granddaughter. So for
Mhm.
11 months, that has been magic. And to watch be ye like little children, there's a reason why, the master teacher says that. And to watch this beautiful girl just be so enamored and excited and love life and be
Yeah,
so pure and brilliant and curious and happy, and no
yes.
matter what, stuffy nose or not, she's happy. And then if my energy is not in, if I'm not being love in that energy, she feels it, she reflects it back, she's not happy. So she's
Mm,
teaching me so much about who I am and how I show up in the world.
yeah.
um and so that's magic. That and traveling sort, but we've not done a lot of that in the past year, right? But going on adventures with my beloved, traveling,
Mm,
is magic as well.
great. Now I know you do a lot of CSL Dallas, and I've certainly enjoyed my times there when I've come, maybe 3 or 4 times now. But so we'll have the link to CSL Dallas website up on the show notes, and then we'll include Faith Forward Dallas as well. Now, what upcoming project or event of yours would you like to share with our international audience?
Well, let's see. I tell you what, I'm going to give a shout out to Petra.
Okay.
She has a Sunday morning science mind class that's just really kick ass. So if you want just a nice way, she goes through the science mind textbook. Doesn't matter
Okay.
where you pick up or when you drop in, but
Hmm.
that's just a regular thing. We will be finally, when this release of this pandemic, I will be doing a fire walk this year.
Okay.
Of course, and there are people that have bought tickets that were flying in to come do that before the pandemic hit, by the way.
Okay.
So if you are in the country, I guess you could be international, and you want to walk on fire in a really beautiful spiritual container, right? I would say that. But we are going to be doing things for specifically the under 40 crowd. And then we're also going to be doing things specifically for African Americans. So I'm excited about that. And those will be online as well. So that's we have a very diverse community here in Dallas. And
Yeah.
so we're just getting excited to get open again. But we do everything
Wonderful.
online, and we're never going to go back. So that's what I would say. Be
Okay,
on the
great.
lookout. Just stay in tune with the website.
Well, I love your energy and your enthusiasm, and it's such a breath of fresh air to hear, someone so anchored in faith. And so I've been around you and known you for a long time, so I'm just grateful that you decided to say yes to come on Mystic Magic.
I love what you do, Celeste. And
Thank you.
and you talked about breakthrough. So here's one of my lines that I really embrace for myself, and it changed my life. Don't let your good get in the way of your great.
Amen. Amen.
Don't do it. So thanks for having me. I love who you are and what you do, Celeste. I'm so happy to connect with you and be able
Yeah,
to share.
me too. This is Mystic Magic, exploring our spirit to understand our lives.
Breaking out of the old ways of being, breaking into a new way of seeing is no small feat to do, but is done by more than a few. For the thing that drives us all is Spirit's loving call. We're called to be who we came to be. The journey of the soul is how we unfold. It makes us break through separation and imbue our highest desires to reveal the part of us that is real, our essence, the presence of love and light shining bright. Let's not hesitate to be free. Let's meditate to see what's hiding behind the shadow. It needn't be a battle of darkness versus light. It's not a fight, but surrendering to our majesty and embracing our destiny to be one with the one. A simple yes, and it's done. Thank you for tuning in today. Be sure to check out our show notes for more information about today's episode. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and all of your favorite podcast venues. And do subscribe to be notified. Rather than wait to find out if you can reach me about when the next episode is being released, just subscribe and you'll be notified. It doesn't cost a thing. Be sure to keep tuning in to Mystic Magic. If this show has been a blessing to you, be sure to financially support the show. We sure appreciate it. This is Mystic Magic, exploring our spirit to understand our lives.